They say beauty can be both a gift and a curse. In the case of 24-year-old Rebecca Koster, it became the prelude to something unspeakable. She was young, radiant, with the kind of striking presence that made people turn their heads when she entered a room. But by the time her story ended, that same body people once admired was desecrated, burned, and, according to whispers that rippled through New York at the time, possibly carved up. The official reports spoke of stabbing, of fire, of brutality. But in the shadows, people whispered about parts missing and about what kind of mind would do something like that. It's a question that sits heavy, isn't it? The kind of darkness that hides behind the familiar smile of someone you think you know, the depths of control, obsession, and rage driving a person to not only kill, but to mutilate, to burn, to erase. Join us as we uncover the circumstances and brutality surrounding Rebecca Koster's untimely demise.
Welcome to CrimeScope USA. Before we get into the video, do smash that like and subscribe button to help the channel. Also, don't forget to ring that notification bell so as not to miss any new videos from us.
On a cold December night in 2009, a girl vanished. Within 2 weeks, the vibrant woman everyone remembered was reduced to a barely recognizable form dumped on the side of a highway, as if she were nothing more than evidence to be destroyed. The man she trusted that night had other plans that would unravel into one of New York's most horrifying and twisted murder cases in recent memory. Before investigators even pieced together the evidence, people were already asking a chilling question. Who could look at someone so alive and decide to destroy her so completely? Rebecca had been out with friends in Manhattan on the night of December 3rd, 2009. It was a typical evening: dinner, drinks, laughter. She was described as warm, magnetic, and extremely beautiful, the kind of person who lit up a room. After the night out, she told her friends she was meeting up with her ex-boyfriend in the Bronx. They all went home, hoping to hear from her the next day. But by morning, the next day, it was discovered she never returned home. For days, no one knew where she'd gone. Her friends and family grew worried, reporting her missing when she didn't show up for work and failed to contact anyone. Rebecca's disappearance quickly became more than just a missing persons case. There was something unsettling in how abruptly she vanished. 2 weeks later, on December 21st in Wappinger Falls, about 70 miles north of New York City, hunters stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Deep in a wooded area off a rural road, they found a partially burned, decomposing body wrapped in a blanket. The remains were so badly charred that identification was initially impossible. The body was missing its nose, fingers, ears, toes. Basically, all the identifying features that made them who they were was stripped away. It's uncertain if this was during or after her demise. It would take days before DNA confirmed what everyone feared: it was Rebecca Koster. The autopsy revealed she had been stabbed multiple times. Her body had been set on fire in an attempt to destroy evidence. And while authorities did not publicly confirm every gruesome detail, rumors spread that other parts of her had been removed, a detail that turned an already brutal murder into a whispered urban nightmare. Investigators immediately turned their attention to the only person known to have had contact with her in her final moments, Evans Gonthier. He was the last person known to have seen her alive. Evans was the ex-boyfriend who, according to those closest to Rebecca, still harbored an overwhelming obsession over her. They had broken up, but he refused to let her go. He was possessive, jealous, and controlling. The night she disappeared, she willingly went to see him, likely believing it would be just a simple meetup. What she didn't know was that Evans had been planning something far darker. When detectives finally brought Evans Gonthier into the interrogation room, they already knew more than he realized. They had her phone records, witness statements, and the damning blood traces from his apartment. But they didn't confront him with all of this at once. Instead, they started soft, a classic psychological tactic. Evans sat slouched in his chair, feigning confusion and concern, acting like a man who had no idea why he was there. He told detectives he hadn't seen Rebecca in weeks, that he was home alone the night she vanished. He tried to appear calm, but his body language betrayed him. Shifting in his seat, avoiding eye contact, wiping his palms on his jeans. The detectives let him talk, noting every inconsistency. Then they tightened the screws. They revealed surveillance footage placing Rebecca near his apartment the night she disappeared. His demeanor shifted. He stopped rambling and started choosing his words carefully. "Yeah, maybe she came by," he eventually admitted, but she left. He claimed she stayed for only a short while and walked out into the night unharmed. It was a neat story, but it didn't line up with the cell tower pings that showed her phone remaining in his neighborhood for hours. Over the course of multiple interrogations, Evans' story kept changing. First, he hadn't seen her. Then he had, but she left. Then later, he suggested maybe someone else had come to his apartment afterward. Detectives described him as testing the perimeter, watching their reactions to see what he could get away with. Each time they cornered him with evidence, he would shift his narrative just enough to keep a sliver of plausible deniability. When they told him they had found blood traces in his apartment, his composure finally cracked. He leaned forward, rubbing his hands over his face, sighing heavily. He claimed Rebecca had cut herself on something while visiting, that the blood was from a minor accident. It was absurd, but it revealed panic. Then came the moment that broke his facade. Detectives brought up his cousin. They hinted that his cousin had already talked, a bluff at first, and that they knew he hadn't disposed of Rebecca's body alone. Evans Ganthier froze. He asked for his cigarette. When he returned, his tone had shifted entirely. He wasn't the calm ex-boyfriend anymore. He was cornered prey. He started asking hypotheticals, like, if someone helped after the fact, but didn't hurt anyone, what happens to them? It was a clear attempt to gauge how much trouble he was in and how much his cousin had given away. Eventually, Evans admitted to being with Rebecca that night, to her passing out, and to panicking. It was a half confession, the kind killers give when they're trying to soften their image. He said he didn't know what to do and implied he was scared, but he never fully admitted to the murder. Instead, he tried to position himself as someone who just wanted to get rid of the body after an accident. Detectives didn't buy it. They had enough forensic evidence to prove she'd been stabbed multiple times and deliberately burned. By the final interrogation sessions, Evans had boxed himself in with so many lies that there was no escape. Each version contradicted the last. The calm mask was gone. He was visibly sweating, defensive, and agitated. Detectives later described him as a man who underestimated the investigation, believing he could manipulate his way out of murder the same way he had manipulated people in his personal life.
According to forensics, Evans stabbed Rebecca to death in his apartment. He then wrapped her body in a blanket, placed it in a plastic storage bin, and kept it there for 2 days while he figured out what to do next. Eventually enlisting the help of his cousin, transporting the body north, and setting it on fire in a secluded, wooded area. This wasn't a crime of passion in the heat of the moment. It was cold, calculated, and methodical. He kept her there in his apartment as if she were an object. And when he finally decided to dispose of her, he did so with chilling efficiency. The case that followed exposed Evans' manipulative tendencies. He denied, he stalled, and he tried to control the narrative even as evidence closed in. Witnesses testified about his obsessive behavior and his inability to accept the breakup. Prosecutors painted a portrait of a man consumed by control, someone who couldn't handle rejection, who decided that if he couldn't have her, no one could. In 2012, Evans Ganthier was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison.
But for many who followed the case, that sentence didn't feel like enough for what he did to Rebecca. What makes the murder of Rebecca Koster so haunting isn't just the brutality of the act, it's the betrayal. This was someone she knew, someone she once trusted, someone she thought she could meet up with and be safe. It's the hidden nature of evil, the way it wears familiar faces and waits for a moment of vulnerability. Rebecca's beauty may have turned heads, but it was her trust in someone from her past that ultimately led to the darkness that consumed her. Years later, her story remains one that lingers, partly because of the horrific way her life ended, and partly because it reflects something deeply unsettling about human nature. Evil doesn't always appear as a stranger in the dark. Sometimes it's the person you once loved, waiting for the chance to strike.